Hello, and welcome to Heal with Mushrooms, the podcast where we explore the magic, medicine, and mystery of fungi. I'm Cassandra, and in each episode, we will dive into the world of mushrooms with experts, healers, and visionaries who are shaping the future of mycology. Today, I'm honored to welcome Maria Finn. Maria is a chef, an author, and a speaker who creates food and art experiences inspired by wild places. Her cookbook, Forage, Gather, Feast, was published in April of 2024 by Sasquatch Books. She lives on a houseboat in Sausalito with her truffle hound, Flora Jane, her 2 tabby cats, and her native oyster garden, collectively named Billy. She is the founder of Flora and Fungi Adventures, where she hosts wild food-centric adventures from California all the way north to Alaska. She recently launched the Institute for Eco-Based Living with pop-up events that bring together science, art, and food. She also gives truffle talks, tastings, and truffle hunting demonstrations with Flora Jane. Thank you so much, Maria, for joining me. I'm so excited to hear more about Flora and Fungi Adventures. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're up to in the Bay Area?
Oh, thank you so much, Cassandra. Yeah, we are actually down here in Northern California, kind of reaching our tail end of the culinary mushroom season, which is kind of bittersweet. I'm still going out in the woods and looking for them, but fewer and fewer. And I think this might be it until, come May and the snows start melting in the mountains and we'll get morels. But yeah, so I've always, not always, I think I've been foraging, 15, 20 years for fun. But during COVID lockdown, I had been working as a chef and as a writer, but mostly I write a lot about food and sustainability. And I lost all my work, like many people in these industries did.
Yeah.
And, so it was when we could go back outside and gather in small groups outdoors. So many people over the years had asked me to take them mushroom hunting. I started creating workshops. And my focus is, I'm not a mycologist. There's a lot of fascinating mushrooms that we're really just starting to learn about. I mean, there's so much we don't know. We're just starting to learn. But I really like to focus on the delicious edibles. And so, when the first camp was going to be porcini camp, my idea is you learn a porcini, you learn it well. You learn everything about it, how to prepare it, in its earliest younger stage, when it's number 1, all the way up to number 3, what its habitat is, all of that. But our very first camp, there were no porcini at all. It was totally dry. So
Oh, bummer.
I know. We found a little bit of black trumpets. And actually, I was trying to buy porcini for the cooking lesson afterwards. I did this open fire cooking class following the forage. And there were no porcini in the whole country. There were no porcini. I got some frozen ones. So
You imported from Europe?
no, they were frozen from Pacific Northwest. They'd been IFQ frozen. So I learned then, don't call it a porcini camp, just call it a culinary mushroom camp. Because then the idea of the next one was chanterelles. But if we know anything about mushrooms, we know they may come back to the same tree every year, or they may not, or it might be a different time, or you go to your chanterelle spot and there's some black trumpets in it. Like, mushrooms can have a mind of their own, right? So
Absolutely.
So it's been, and since then, my business has grown a lot. I now have about 5 or 6 guides working for me, not just for mushrooms. We do all kinds of wild foods. We do sea urchin and anchovies and seaweed and just mussels in the winter. So it's really, but it's really an education. We really want people to get into nature. I feel like learning your mushrooms is a great way to learn the forest. It's a great way to pay attention to, okay, it rained. So we need, everybody argues it after our first big rain. Is it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the mushrooms start appearing? With the seafood, we pay attention to the tides and the seasons. And so really, all of these, for me, wild foods and mushrooms in particular, are really about coming to know our local ecosystems and landscapes and really taking stewardship over them.
That is absolutely amazing. And I love how you took the COVID opportunity as a time to find connection and build community, especially around something as exciting as wild foods. I'm sure you've changed lives by getting people out into nature and explaining to them that there is food out there. Can you tell us a little bit about your Wild Food Manifesto and how that came about?
Oh, well, I just, something I think with nature, and spending a lot of time in it, I really feel like I feel really well cared for, by
Yeah,
it. And I feel a constant sense of beauty, a constant sense of awe, just real gratitude at the delicious food. And I feel like this is everyone's birthright, that we have
absolutely.
that the earth provides us with so much, and we have created these systems of disconnect, and this idea that especially food, you're like, food is provided for you if you're born on planet earth,
Hmm.
and I read this really interesting book, The History of Food. It was Tom Stoppard, and he was saying that if earth is 24 hours old,
Yeah.
humans have been here for one of those hours. And of that 1 hour, we've only been farming for 4 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And we are not healthy. We are not healthier for it. We are not
No.
stronger. We are not better off for it. When they take, a tribe that is still on wild foods and one that is
Mhm.
farming, the wild foods is much healthier. And their food system is more resilient, which is something that surprised me. Because if you think about crops, like we just had St. Patrick's Day, right?
Hmm.
They were the Irish before the English came in, before the English landowners, before Catholicism. They were pagans and they ate wild food. They ate salmon and acorns and greens and seaweed. And when you're just eating potatoes, first of all, they're not nutrient dense.
No.
And then second of all, you have a blight and they're starving to death for losing one crop, right?
Yeah.
So, this year we had a bad chanterelle year. Last year was a phenomenal chanterelle year. But if you were a creature that relied only on chanterelles, you would have had a really bad year. But nature's not like that. Nature's like, well, here, eat some hedgehogs instead.
Oh,
Here,
so good.
they're so good, so underappreciated. So my chanterelles didn't come in, but I had a great hedgehog year. So there is this resiliency and this way I think that we can be. And so that is what I feel. I feel like nature is everyone's right. And that's in California, there's all these rules against mushroom foraging. Um,
Really?
oh yeah, you're only allowed to do it legally in one national park, a state park, a couple demonstration forests if you have permits. And I
Hmm.
I ask them all the time. I'm like, why? And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you might walk off the trail and hurt something, which I don't think it really hurts the forest. And then the other one is somebody told me they think it's because they're afraid of liability. People are going to eat something poisonous and kill themselves. But people surf off Ocean Beach here all the time and kill themselves, and nobody sues the city for it. So that doesn't seem to hold up particularly well. Ab divers have died diving on abalone. They didn't sue the county. So I don't know why we're so anti mushrooms down here.
I mean, honestly, there's a decent fungal phobia in parts of California. I also lived in California for many years, and I happened to experience living in Santa Cruz, which was
Mhm.
more of a fungi-friendly place, actually.
But it's still not legal
It's
in
still not
most.
legal.
No, it is not legal to forage in most of Santa Cruz. So where I live,
Yeah.
I forage wherever I want. I don't care. If I'm walking my
Yeah.
dog along and I see a chanterelle or porcini, I'm going to put it in my bag. But
Hmm.
I won't take other people out and do that because some people don't want to get in trouble and have all that. So I get the permits and get the insurance and all of that. But I myself feel like you don't hurt them.
Yeah.
They're growing with the trees or underground mycelium. It's like picking an apple off a tree. It doesn't hurt the tree. And, and I tell people if you're going to forage for food, just learn a couple of mushrooms really well,
Hmm.
1 year. Add one more mushroom the next year. Add another mushroom. There's only like, I think about 6, 7, maybe up to 10 really delicious mushrooms here. There's
Right.
some pretty good ones, but I don't know. I wouldn't go out too far on a limb for a bluet,
Yeah.
or something like that. I would go, but
Uh,
then we have 3 deadly mushrooms here. So
mhm.
learn the 3 deadly, learn the 10 super delicious, and then everything else might not taste that great. It might give you a stomach ache, but it's just not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the phobia that rages around it is really remarkable.
Mushroom phobia is when someone is illogically scared of mushrooms and thinks that they may have a deadly component to them when they are completely benign. There are a few mushrooms that can kill you, but most are just pretty to look at. There are a few culinary ones that are delicious, like chanterelles. We're here in Washington. We had an epic season. So I'm curious to know, like, what was happening with California? Where were your chanterelles?
You know what? Last year we had that. Last year was phenomenal. Everybody was loading up. This year, and our rains came a little late, and maybe we needed a cold snap or something like that. But everywhere from, my spots here in Marin Hills to Point Reyes to up to Mendocino, not a great year for golden chanterelles.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know, sometimes maybe if there's a great year, you're like, well, they spread their spores and they don't feel the need to do it this year. I really don't know. But last year we just had an early heavy rain in October, and it was a great mushroom year. But we had a great porcini year this year. So, yeah.
Okay.
So I do not know. I do not. They are a marvelous mystery. Yeah.
So I heard you're also into truffles, and I read somewhere that you identify as a truffle dog tiger mom. Is that correct?
Yeah. So also during COVID, years and years and years ago, I was walking through Salt Point foraging for porcini, and I had a big bag of them. And I was very excited, and I came across this mycologist I know, and I showed him my bag of porcini, and he was about to teach a class. He's like, "Whoa, wait here!" He wasn't impressed, and he goes to his van, and he gets a jar with these black lumps in it, and he told me to smell it. And I unscrewed it, I smelled it, and it was my first time ever smelling a truffle. And it changed my whole life. Like it was the essence of a forest. I never wanted to leave. And then I was invited as a journalist to write about the Napa Truffle Festival, and I got to eat truffles. And it was amazing. Like it's nothing like truffle oil. It's just incredible, ephemeral, just delight. And I met my first truffle dog. His name was Rico the truffle dog. And they're an ancient breed. They're a Etruscan water dog, actually. They date back in Etruscan art to about 4th century BC. Super cute. They look like a doodle. They're like 30 pounds for females, 40 pounds for males. And so I was like, that's a dog for me. I mean, it's a water dog and it's a mushroom dog because I live in a house. I live in a houseboat, right? So, but I also traveled a lot, and I just was like, when am I going to have a dog? And at that time, you could only get a Lagotto in Italy or France. They were not available in the United States. So I just thought, well, I'll just put it on my vision board here and then let go of it. Well, I started seeing people walking Lagottos, and I was like, where'd you get that dog? And they're like, oh, there's breeders in the United States now. And then COVID hit, and I was just like, well, I guess it's time. So I adopted my truffle dog, Flora Jane, and we started training right away. We supposedly have tuber gibbosum, the Oregon native whites here. Yeah. In Marin, we have not found those, but we trained in the house, we trained outside, we did all that. And then, and I'll back up for a second. A friend of mine in Germany has one, and she told me it trained itself to go get porcini, just would run into the forest and come out with a porcini.
Wow.
I know. So
that's so cool.
So I thought, if I can train Flora Jane for porcini, chanterelles, matsutake, right? Then I just have this secret weapon when I'm out foraging mushrooms. She loved it when we were practicing at home. When I went out and there was the real porcini started popping, the real chanterelles started coming up, she had zero interest in them.
Huh.
None. Did not care. No. And the breeder, I told the breeder she was going to be a truffle dog. She was going to be a work dog. And she was like, oh, I got the dog for you. She's smart. She needs a job. So I thought, well, gosh, maybe she's not a truffle dog because we have these native white truffles here. Yeah. So we drove up to Seattle, and I went out with Alana from the Truffle Dog Company, just north of Seattle. And she said, the weather's bad. She's a puppy. She's never smelled a real truffle. I actually had been training her on truffle oil, which is bullshit, but it's what I had. And so, but I put a jacket on her. She ran in the woods, and she put her little nose down, and she found truffles everywhere.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, it totally makes me think it's really in her DNA, but she's a very clever little dog, and she loves treats. Of course, she's obsessed with them. So if we're truffle hunting and she doesn't find a truffle, I mean, what Alana taught me is to like, if she's digging a hole and you don't want to get frustrated, so you might put a truffle in the hole and act like she found it and reward her. But if we're just walking somewhere and she starts digging and I'm like, is it possible? Well, yeah, it's possible, but I don't see one. I don't give her a treat. Because if I did that, she would start digging all the time randomly. And she also loves a little rodent hole. So you don't want to train them for rodent holes. So that's what I mean by truffle puppy tiger mom. You know, I'd heard the book where the woman who was the tiger mom was like, if her daughter didn't win first place, they didn't go out for ice cream, right? You're like, that's so harsh.
Yeah.
To do to your little kid, you know? But I'm like, with Flora Jane, I'm like, if you don't find the truffle, you're not getting a treat. And that's just because, like I said, she would end up just training me to give her treats all the time. But, you know, she's pretty spoiled as far as dog goes. Like, well, in Italy, they live in cages near the field. They don't have, you know, she, on the other hand, sleeps in bed with me, you know. So,
she lives quite the good life.
Yes, she does. So she does. So she's a work dog, but she's mostly a party dog.
Well, that's fun. Would you mind explaining to my listeners why a truffle would be underground and what maybe like what a little bit of the difference is between a mushroom that they would see above ground and a truffle that you find underground?
Oh, yes, of course. So, and the truffle's different too, because there's male and female DNA. So mushrooms and because they're all fungi, right? And so, so some mushrooms are on dead wood, some mushrooms grow on leaf litter, but a lot of the mushrooms, the mycorrhizal mushrooms, grow in a symbiotic relationship with tree roots. And the truffle does this as well. So the truffle, and really a lot of the other mushrooms and mycorrhizal, they create this kind of like it creates almost like a net underground that is going to pull in more nutrients and more water to the tree. And then the tree has because it has leaves and the leaves can pull in sunlight and they photosynthesize, they will send carbohydrates and sugar into the truffles and into the mushrooms. So this is when they talk about the symbiotic relationship between the two. This is kind of what's happening. You know, Suzanne Simard, who wrote The Mother Tree, she did a lot of research and believes that the trees are communicating through the forest and that this mycorrhizal web is how they communicate. So that they know the forest, we used to think it was like individual trees competing with each other, but it's now being completely rethought of as an organism working together. So if a tree is, you know, in trouble and needs more nutrients and water, then the mother tree would send those to it, and this would all be communicated on this underground web. But, you know, they also have pheromones. So if, you know, an insect is attacking a tree, they can send off a pheromone above ground and let the other trees know to sort of get their defenses up. So we're just starting to learn about this too. And it's really fascinating. But the truffle, what I think is so special is it's really this node of energy. It's really a node that moves energy in the forest. So it's underground, and it can be like a truffle can be just like a speck. It can be a speck of dirt for a very long time, like 100 years or however long. But at some point, the male DNA appears and kind of impregnates it, and then it disappears. So the male kind of impregnates it with the DNA, disappears, and then the truffle will start to grow. And it grows underground. It never breaks the ground. So when the other mushrooms break the ground, they do this to spread their spores. So, and the spores will spread on the air. Also on like banana slugs, you know, banana slugs are great little pollinators in the forest, and snails, they go into the air. The truffles don't have that. They stay underground. So in order to spread their spores, they have to attract their own pollinators. And so the pollinators are really the squirrels, the chipmunks, wild boar. And so they let loose their scent. And it is that incredibly evocative scent of the truffle that we know and love. So when that scent is wafting through the forest, and one of the things so exciting about having a truffle dog is you get to see how scent moves in the forest. So nothing in nature is a straight line. So when I watch my dog, she either catches it on the air or she catches it on the ground, and then she follows it like maybe a sailboat would sail, right? And she'll circle a tree and they go here and here. So the scent is dynamic, moving like a river delta, and it calls all these little these little predators to it, and they dig it up and they eat it. And then the spores in the truffle have kind of an encapsulation on them so they can handle the digestive tracts of the animals.
Mhm.
Flying squirrels are great pollinators, right? They're just flying treetop to treetop, pooping out truffle
Yeah.
spores as they go. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and wild boars, of course, are really great pollinators. And there is a chemical in the truffle that is also found in the testes and the saliva of a ruddy male wild boar.
Mhm.
So female pigs and female boars, go crazy for these. So traditionally, you didn't have to train a pig to go find these. So the story is in France, a farmer was trying to get his wife pregnant, couldn't get her pregnant, noticed a sow just had 13 little piglets and watched what it was eating. Well, he followed her to a tree that had truffles. So he started eating
Ah.
truffles. So that's one of the stories. I'm sure Italy says they discovered it and so on.
Yeah.
But so pigs did not have to be trained, but they did have to be beaten off the truffle. And they're so large that could actually be quite brutal for both the pig and the farmer who are doing it. The other problem is they damage the roots of the trees. So they could be very destructive on a tree. And the other problem is you don't want anyone to know your truffle spots. So if you're a French farmer and you're heading off into the woods with your 600-pound pig, everybody knows where you're going.
Yep.
So they train dogs to do this. And you don't have to have a Lagotto or a Magnola, which is what I have. A lot of dogs can be trained to do it. If they like treats, if they can focus a little bit in the woods, if they can, a Lagotto's just bred for it. So it's kind of like training a retriever to chase a stick. It's going to be a little bit easier to get them on it and doing it. But so, yeah, so these underground mushrooms cannot be poisonous because they would kill their predator or they would kill their pollinators, right? So they're all edible, all the truffles, but a lot of them are not delicious. There's hundreds of different kinds of wild truffles in the United States, thousands in Australia.
Right. And don't they have specific habitats that they kind of like?
Yes.
Like besides just near trees, which they have to have the trees to grow. So you would never find them in an environment that doesn't have another structure for them to be near their roots. They are always going to be married with the roots.
Yes. And, there are desert truffles. And in the Middle East, there's, they hunt for them. They have whole kind of markets for these desert truffles. And these grow with the desert rock roses. So they're growing in a symbiotic relationship and they break the ground. So you don't need a dog. And they're I think they're kind of soft and they're high in protein. So they're stewed and things like that. They're used differently, but they believe now when they talked about manna from heaven in the Old Testament, those were actually truffles.
I've been hearing about this. Do you know William Padilla Brown?
The name is familiar.
Yeah, he actually has a pretty advanced truffle theory where he believes that truffles were one of the ways that humans developed our advanced intelligence. That we ate them and that they were such a nutrient-dense food that they were able to help stimulate our brains to become more conscious and aware and awake. And it's a little bit different than the Terence McKenna theory of thinking that it was psilocybin-based mushrooms.
Well, and I've heard it's also seafood is what that made our brains do this and that. And, I would say, though, everything we've ever eaten has brought us to where we are.
Yeah.
And so that's why another thing where, and I love truffles and I love truffle hunting and everything, but I'm also like right now, what's out there in the woods are turkey tail mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't food, but they're incredibly medicinal. And so it's something where, and there's false turkey tails. And I was out with a professional mycologist and I said, well, what do these have benefits? And she goes, they do. We don't know what they are yet. We're just starting to learn what these are, So I would say that we are really starting to learn about mushrooms. We're able to DNA, sequence their DNA now and everything else, but humans have definitely evolved with them. And, with the truffles are one of those crops, kind of like, the Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan. He talks about.
Oh, yeah.
What crops have seduced us into spreading them all over the world, like the cannabis crop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And truffles are definitely one of those. They have They're currently being cultivated on every continent except
Hmm.
Antarctica. There's like thousands of acres every year being planted. And it's kind of this wonderful reforestation taking place because they're planting oak and hazelnut trees with the spores on their roots. So they're
Hmm.
already going to have a healthier start. And so, California, that was the other thing with my timing is when I first wrote about people planting the truffle orchards here, and it was from the American Truffle Company. I was like, oh, in about 12, 15 years, we're going to have truffle orchards here and they're going to need truffle dogs.
Yep.
And so now I have my truffle dog and we do that. We go to truffle orchards. So we go to the woods for wild ones, but we get hired to go to truffle orchards in California and survey them and see if they have truffles coming in yet. And if they do, we find them. And so that's a ton of fun to do with my dog as well.
Wow, that's such an interesting economic opportunity for people. That's a long-term plan. If you want to make your own truffle plantation, you're looking at a 20-year game plan, it sounds like.
It can be. I mean, it's very weird because, there'll be a truffle orchard in Oregon, let's say Central Oregon, with almost the same conditions as one 2 miles away. And one is getting a bunch of truffles and the other one isn't. And nobody can figure out why, you know?
Huh.
But so it could be 20 years. It may not be. You may never get anything, or it might be 5 years, and there's different kinds of truffles too. So, if we go back to the wild truffles, of them having their own areas and habitats. So there's
Hmm.
the con truffle or the Chesapeake truffle on the East Coast. We have the Oregon white, Oregon black, and there's several kinds of the Oregon white. There's tuber gibosum is the spring one, but there's an earlier one. Um, and and there's a brown and there's, a couple, and there's probably more. Like I
Hmm.
had my dog, the places we have here, one of the issues is that anywhere that you can take a dog, you can't hunt mushrooms. Anywhere you can hunt mushrooms, you can't take a dog. Um, so you're
That's
virtually,
so backwards.
it's so stupid. I mean, it's just insane. So, so we were out, I was out with my dog and she started digging and she dug up some rhizopogon, which are a false truffle. They're,
Hmm.
pogey. They're fine. They're edible. They're like, someone was describing to me as eating liver. They don't taste like liver, but they have that consistency.
Hmm.
But, and I contacted a professional truffle hunter I know in Oregon and he goes, keep looking because you may discover whole new species. And so if I do, what I will do is just take them over to UC Berkeley to have them sequenced because I can't go to the Park Service because they'll be like, well, it's illegal for you to take a mushroom. It's illegal for you to have a dog, so they're basically shutting it down. So, but if I find it on private property or about on my own, I'm just going to do that because there's probably thousands more species because there's not that many truffle dogs in the country.
That is really cool. And I didn't know that you could go to the California universities and give them things for DNA barcoding. But I imagine there are young kids who are starting to learn that that's a really cool field to get into.
Oh yeah, and I mean you have to ask him first. But in Seattle, University of Washington has on Fridays, you can take your mushrooms there and they'll ID them for you.
Oh, yeah. I go to the Snohomish County Mycological Society meetings and the Puget Sound Mycological Society meetings as well here in Washington, where we also do the ID table. I recently saw a photo from the LA Mycological Society's ID table, and it looked so cool. Whereas here up in Washington, we're just barely getting some mushrooms. Like I saw a crust fungus out the other day, and, obviously the conchs are still here, but we haven't hit our morels yet. We haven't had anything really coming. And
Well, when is your guys' big season?
well, we're more like kind of like end of summer to fall really kicks up. But this year was so interesting. I was still finding chanterelles in January.
Did you not have a really cold winter? Is that what happened?
It got cold, but it didn't get cold until late in January.
So
December stayed warm, and I found hedgehogs and chanterelles all through December, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then to
nice.
find one like mid-January, I was almost shocked. I mean, obviously, it was a little bit past, right? It wasn't perfect, but it was still the thrill of seeing it out in the wild and like happy. I was like, wow, I didn't know
Right.
you guys could show up in January this late.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
but maybe like 2 weeks or so, hopefully less, we'll be kicking up for morel season here.
Oh,
And
wow.
so,
So you guys
yeah.
are getting ready. Yeah, I do. Flora Fungi, we're doing a morel camp in May. I think mid
Mhm.
to late May, and we're in the Sierra foothills, but we go into prescribed burn areas. So
Oh,
because
yeah.
they've been doing a lot more of those, and so it's nice. It's not like, I mean, the big fires, you might have a lot of morels, or you might not find much, or it could be very dangerous walking through
Yeah.
there. But the prescribed burns are nice because there's a nice smattering of morels.
That's really cool. I was listening to Aaron of Mushroom Wonderland the other night. He did a presentation for the Snohomish Mycological Society, and he just wanted to help us remind people that if they are going to be going into a burn area, that there could be dangers out there, and to make sure that they're properly prepared and have adequate footwear, and let people know exactly where they're going to be, because sometimes the burn areas can be a little bit dangerous. And if we are going to send people out towards those, at least be safe.
Well, I would say that for all mushroom foraging. You can be looking at the ground really hard and get turned around in the forest, So I always recommend have a compass, have a map or a rare map, have water. I carry liquid charcoal and hydrogen peroxide for my dog.
Mhm.
And we haven't had to use it, but right when I got her as a puppy, she was running through just a park in downtown Sausalito and ate a mushroom. And I was just like, oh, good God, I can't lose my truffle dog the first week I have her.
Oh.
So, but as she grew up, she stopped doing that. She stopped eating mushrooms. But that's what, because you can be pretty far away. And this spring, I'm getting a rattlesnake trained, because, yeah,
A
I,
rattlesnake?
rattlesnake trained. Yeah. She jumped at a rattlesnake last summer.
Oh, you're having her trained to be prepared if a rattlesnake comes. I thought you were saying there was a rattlesnake that could be trained for mushrooms for a second. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. You
Okay.
would have to be a full blown witch to pull that off.
I was thinking the same. I was like, if you were telling me that you're going to go out into the forest with a rattlesnake and find mushrooms, sign me up.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I'm not there yet. I'll let you know when I'm there, but I'm not there yet. No,
yeah, if you become a snake charmer, let's go.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna wait for my I'm just gonna get my dog so she stops leaping at rattlesnakes.
Yeah, that's a good training.
Yeah.
I think she'll appreciate it too.
Yeah.
A little mom protection.
Right.
So that's another thing for people to be aware of. The forest does have other creatures. Nature has other creatures. Just always be aware. Don't wander somewhere unless someone knows where you're going. You can have a mushroom whistle if you're out in a group, and the whistle is going to provide an easy way for you guys to communicate and share where you are in the forest.
Oh, and also, there was a woman, and this was on a thread, but one of my women who works with me, Ombre, said that she saw this. Some woman was out foraging by herself, and a man came along and actually tied her to a tree. He didn't.
What?
No, he didn't hurt her in like the sense of he didn't rape her
Mm-hmm.
or assault her, but he tied her to a tree and left her there. And I don't know how she got out of it. She got out of it and she was okay. But so Ombre carries a big thing of bear mace with her. And, I have a little mace for coyotes and stuff. But I would say if you're a woman out foraging alone, definitely carry some mace with you. Make sure people know where you are. And, the whole a bear versus a man in the forest, it's like either one. Yeah. If you got a can of mace on you,
right?
or you're just gonna feel better. And also take your dog. We have all these areas where they're like, you can't hike back here with your dog. And I'm like, when you make the world safe for women, I won't hike back here with my dog. But until then, I'm hiking with my dog. Like,
absolutely.
And I mean, I'm still going to hike with my dog, even when it's safe for women. But
the dog deserves to hike too.
Well, and I did get one ranger said, on this one hike, she's like, it's a valley, and we're afraid the mountain lions won't cross if they smell dog, and if they don't cross, they won't mate. So I'm like, okay, that's a valley I stay out of. Is that just the reason? But yeah, it is something I think for women in foraging. I haven't had a problem. I do not let being a woman keep me from going into the woods or into the ocean or anything I want to do. But, again, be aware. Be aware. Let people know where you're going. And if you want, carry some mace on you if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, that's great advice. And super bizarre, weird story I've never heard about that now I have to go look up because
Yeah, I'll see if I can
Why?
find it and send it to you. But I know, but it was like scary, but not, it wasn't like, psycho in the woods. Cause I think we're a little too afraid of the woods.
Yeah.
Often we've been taught to be afraid of the woods. And then sometimes you're hiking and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, why is there this really old burnt up car right here in the middle of the forest? Like when you're looking for mushrooms. And I think the woods has grown back. I
Hmm.
mean, this is where the truffles are found in the Pacific Northwest. It's generally second, third generation Douglas plantation areas
Hmm.
that have been logged and clear cut. And so you're like, for all the violence that's happened to the forest here, it's amazing to me they come back the way they do and they produce these truffles. And so, so the woods are, to me, I find them healing and magical and wonderful. But every once in a while, I can be kind of like, ooh, that's a little creepy. What's that doing out here? you know?
So, Maria, I hear you also wrote a book, and would you mind giving us a little bit about what your book's on and maybe tell people one or two ways that if they did have a fresh truffle, how they could incorporate it into their meal?
Oh, yeah. So I have a book called Forage, Gather, Feast, and it is a cookbook divided into three sections, one on forest, one on the coast, and one on kind of urban areas or the edge, is what I call it, like maybe suburban, urban, sort of in town kind of foods. And so the truffles I use are the Oregon blacks and the Oregon whites. And the
Hmm.
Pacific Northwest, I think you guys are able to get them more and more. It's kind of tricky down here. I know a dealer who brings them down. So I buy them from him. And the Oregon Black is really special. It's kind of like a fruity, jammy, it's a beautiful truffle, but it doesn't have a long shelf life.
Hmm.
So sometimes if I'm afraid it's going to turn quickly, I'll put it into honey and then I kind of heat that up to kill the bacteria and then I'll store it that way. But so my cookbook for that one, I have a creme brulee with the Oregon black truffle with the preserved Sakura cherry blossoms over it. And those are just cherry blossoms that you brine in salt and then you put them in an ume plum vinegar and rice vinegar for about a week. And then you take them out and dry them. And they're really special. They're like floral and fruity and tart and everything. And so that's something I love to do. I also will just infuse cream with it
Hmm.
and put that in my coffee. but then I also like to what do I make with it? Oh, pavlovas. So I infuse eggs. I whip
Hmm.
the meringues, and then I have it in the whipped cream, and then I'll shave it over the top and put like pomegranates and hazelnuts over it. So those are the Oregon black. The Oregon white is much more of a traditional garlicky, cheesy truffle. So um, that one I'll put over pasta on flatbreads. I think I have a recipe in there over bone marrow, just roasting bone marrow with a little bit of
Oh,
Parmesan.
delicious.
Oh, it's so good on that. But anything that, really has some fat and a little warmth to it and pretty simple. And then when I make pasta, I infuse the eggs for the pasta, I infuse the cheese, and then I infuse the butter beforehand. So then I make the pasta and I have the cheese and the butter, and then I shave the truffle on top of that. So it's kind of layered into the flavor.
So when you say infuse, you're meaning you take the whole truffle and then you place it into a container with the butter, the eggs, or other things to allow the scent to go into them?
Yes, because that is what it's doing. The truffle is off gassing. And when it comes
Hmm.
out of the ground, it has a very limited time, right? So and as soon as that scent is gone, it just loses it, je ne sais quoi, right? So, and
Right.
and some of them might have 2 weeks, some of them have, or a month, even a Paraguard might have a month. Oregon White might have 2 to 3 weeks on it if it's really comes out of the ground in great shape. But an Oregon Black needs maybe 3 to 5 days. It is not a lot. So that's why you don't see a lot of those commercially. But like
Hmm.
Salt and Straw in Portland was making ice cream out of it. I think they're making like an Amaro out of it in Seattle. Like there's all these creative ways people are preserving it and using it. I like to also,
Hmm.
I'll shave it into butter and then you can freeze it. Um, but but yeah, so that was, sorry, but what was the question again?
Oh, I was just saying it's so interesting for my listeners to understand how to infuse a truffle into their food because some people may not have the culinary knowledge to
Oh, so yeah,
see that process.
so it's the off gassing is so intense. I you can put the whole egg still in its shell in a
Hmm.
jar, right? And put the lid on the jar, and then it will infuse through the shell.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you have a box of truffles sitting in your refrigerator, it will infuse everything in your refrigerator. Basically, anything with fat, it will infuse. Like
Hmm.
it's not going to infuse your pickle juice, but your butter, your cheese, anything with fat, it will totally infuse. So that's something you can do. You don't even have to shave it into the cream. You don't have to shave it into butter. You just can put it in a jar with it, and it will infuse it with the scent and the flavor. So yeah, so it's pretty cool like that.
So that's why people commercially see like truffle oils, is because the industry is putting it into a fat that someone could then put onto their food. But as you mentioned, there's a downside with truffle oils. And could you tell people a little bit what's going on there?
Yeah, so there's actually a good truffle oil. I'm trying to remember his name, but there's an Oregon white truffle oil that's quite good.
Hmm.
But most of the truffle oils you see, 99.9%, are just a chemical compound added to oil. So, when we talked about when they figured out the genome of the Paraguay truffle, they figured out the andestranol. Well, they took some
Hmm.
of those chemicals, molecules, and they created this thing to put into oil and call it truffle oil. So it's a very steroided out version of it, and I intensely dislike it. I don't like truffle oil. There's a few things that I like. There's one potato chip that has it that I'm kind of okay with, but for the most
Hmm.
part, if you get a cheese that says truffle cheese, it's truffle oil. If you get like salt, it's truffle oil. It's all truffle oil. So it's very different than a real truffle. Um, that's even the honey, they add truffle oil to it. It's if you don't make it yourself, you're probably getting truffle oil. And it's like very much a chemical version. And if you like it, great. It's just not truffles.
Right.
It's just a very different thing than truffles.
So just to give a little more context about what we're talking about, when a person goes to a store and they're looking for a truffle product, most likely you'll be pointed to something that is a bottle. And on the back of the bottle, when you look at that bottle, it's going to say it has truffle oil. This is not something that a truffle produces. This is a human-made compound that is being added to the oil to give the essence, to trick your nose and your palate into thinking that you're eating a truffle, when in reality, you are not. So what Maria and I are advocating is real food, wild food, and food that has been foraged by human hands with the assistance of a truffle dog that will power your meal with the most delicious, exquisite flavors that you've ever had.
Well, yes. And also, I would say it's very important to make sure they were dog found truffles, because Oregon truffles had a very bad reputation for a while because people were raking them. And when you rake
Oh.
them, they're not letting off a scent. So they're not ready. They don't have anything going on. And so I always make sure if I'm purchasing truffles, I purchase dog found truffles. And, you hear about counterfeit, or people like in Italy would put cheaper Chinese truffles in with a Paragord and sell them, and they take on the scent. And that, well, the Chinese truffles probably, if they were being found with dogs, would have their own interesting flavor and scent
Hmm.
and experience to them, but they're being raked. And so the raked truffles are just not ready. They're completely subprime. So, or sub pre-prime really. So that's why they don't have it. So you want a dog found, get them naturally. But if you go to Italy and you say you go on a truffle foraging experience, and some
Hmm.
of them are great, some of them not so much, but you'll often you'll go to the farmhouse and you'll see they have truffles in oil, and that's how they preserve them. So you can
Hmm.
put truffles in oil to preserve them a little bit longer, and then use the oil for something. I found that if I put fresh truffles in oil and I let them sit for too long, the whole thing kind of goes
It goes
rancid.
funky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it goes very funky. But you can keep them in there for a little bit and use them. And so, like if you say to somebody in the Italian countryside, like truffle oil is all fake, they aren't going to know what you're talking about. But
Hmm.
in the grocery store, the stuff on there, truffle fries at the ball game. Yeah, that's not real truffles. that's, that's very far away. That's like Cheetos to a good breed. They're just
Hmm.
a very different experience. And there's nothing wrong with Cheetos every now and again. Well, there's probably a lot of things wrong with Cheetos.
We are not advocating eating
Cheat.
Cheetos.
No, no, but I mean, if you like Cheetos, I don't want to shame you for eating Cheetos. There's no shaming here. And if you like
No
truffle oil,
shaming.
I don't want to shame you for liking truffle oil. It's just not truffles.
I really like what you said about the dog found truffles because I think that is a point that hasn't been brought mainstream at all. What Maria means when she says to rake truffles is if you could literally imagine a person going into the forest with a physical rake and taking it onto the roots of the tree and the base of the tree. It's destructive to both the tree, the environment, and as she said, you're not going to find fresh truffles. It's better to have a dog. So I think that's really important if people are going out foraging to just understand that there is a way that we can do this that's sustainable, that's fun, and that involves an animal in a really happy, healthy way. It doesn't have to be a destructive thing that hurts the forest. And if you do find anyone doing that in your area, please try and educate them and share with them that, we should look into alternative ways of finding truffles because it's such a valuable resource. Like harvesting them too young is a shame.
Well, we also, it does become something where people are like, well, what if you can't afford a dog? What if you don't have time to train a dog? And if you can see under some trees, like I think you found a truffle, right? That a squirrel maybe had dug up there and you can
Hmm.
see if you can find one. They may be ready, they may not. But yeah, just don't rake them to the point you're damaging roots, and they may or may not be ready. And you can get get your friend's dog and train it, you don't have to have a Lagotto or Magnolia. It's just if you really, I wanted one. That's what I wanted. That's what you don't have to do that. You can go get a dog that has a good nose, that likes treats, and you can train it.
To that point, my friend did that. And one of the ways that he trained his dog was he took the actual truffle and then put it into little pieces and then used that with an oil, infused it into the oil, and then did put the oil onto cotton balls and hid them all around the house in the forest. So that's one way, if you do have a real truffle, that you can train the dog is by teaching them to go find little cotton balls around the forest. And then that will develop their mind that what you want them to find is the truffle, and they will get better at it.
Yeah, I started off with Q-tips, and I would put them in T-balls. And so,
Oh,
yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the white truffle oil. It's very, very subtle. White truffle oil from Oregon. And I would I've just infused the Q-tips kind of with it and then put those in T-balls, put those around the house and then out in the forest. So you can use truffle oil for that. It doesn't,
yeah.
that doesn't matter that much. Yeah. And then, I'll get truffles that are maybe bruised or don't look great and then I'll freeze them and I'll take those out. So it's cut them up in pieces and use those. And she loves it. I mean, that's the other thing with dogs. It's great for their brains. It's great for getting, their energy out. And, when her little work jacket goes on her, she's just like, ready to go. She just, well, she loves treats. So she knows she's getting treats. And, she's a work dog and she needs a job. And, a lot of dogs like a job. They really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a delicious job, too.
Yeah. And a fun one. They're out in the woods with their people. So.
Well, that's awesome. So, would you tell us, Maria, about what you are offering soon? I saw online that you have a workshop coming up at Essalon, which is an extremely magical place.
Oh, I'm so excited. I know this is such a dream. So Esalen is in Big Sur,
Hmm.
and it's these hot springs that hang over a cliff in Big Sur. Like it couldn't be more insanely beautiful. And apparently they had a guy some years back lead a mushroom workshop there, and it did not go well.
Huh.
No, as somebody on it, in the group, put a mushroom in their pocket, not knowing what it was, ate it, hoping that it was a psychedelic, and then had to be taken to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
I know. I know. So I was just like, that never happens on any of the events I do.
Hmm.
And she's like, I guess, but I think you have to create a container and really educate people pretty vigorously, about what to do and not to do. But so they scheduled me for summer, and there's not going to be
Uh-huh.
mushrooms down there in summer, but there will be seaweed. There'll be lots of plants. There'll be lots of things like that. So, and it's just a really spiritual place. There's something very, very magical about it. And so, I think this is also like I look at wild foods as an education, but it's also this connection to nature and connection to community, connection to self, really, to really these parts of ourselves that maybe we weren't familiar with before. That's what getting lost in the forest does, or getting banged around by waves. It kind of shows us who we are in these ways. And so I'm just, we aren't going to get banged around by waves or lost in the forest at Esalen, but people are going to have, what I really want to do is people to sort of see where is their symbiotic relationship with nature, in the same way I feel like mushrooms and trees have it, we have it with everything around us, but we just lose it in our busyness. So how do we reconnect with that in this magical space, and and really explore this exquisitely beautiful area?
So people can sign up and join you on this magical Esalen adventure. They want to go check out Wild Foods and hang out in hot tubs overlooking the ocean while the moon rises.
Yes.
Sounds pretty good to me.
No, it's pretty fabulous. And also, the place that I'm gonna do the Morel camp is it's called Camp Ernest, and it's in Twain Harte, and it's a really magical little place. It's a forest, and this there's like saunas and hot tubs, and you can either camp or stay in a cabin. Great food, and there's all kinds of foraging like down in the stream. We have watercress and lavage, and then we go out and we spend a full day mushroom hunting, and then we have a mushroom grower come and talk about what he does, and he's just brilliant. So it's a really fun deep dive, and in beautiful kind of Tahoe-ish, lower elevation, but Tahoe-ish type forest, which is very different Bay Area type forest.
Awesome. So if people want to find out more, how can they find you online?
Well, Flora Fungi Adventures is my company, and then also mariafinn.com. And both of them will have information on the book, on upcoming workshops. And and I also do a series of pop-up events called the Institute for Ecosystem-Based Living, where we have scientists and artists and wild foods. And so I'm gearing up for the 2025 season for that.
When you say season, could you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Well, I did it in the summer last year, and I had 3 of them, and they were great, but they were a lot. So I can't do it. I can't. So I'm not doing them year rounds, but I'm gearing up for again this summer. I'll be doing 3 to 4 events. The first one's going to be in Napa, and it's going to be kind of about the Napa River and the estuary, and there's an exhibition. I'm doing it with the D. Rosa Center for the Arts, and they have an exhibition about our kelp and our sea urchin up. And I'm bringing in these phenomenal singers from Kitka, which is an Eastern European a cappella women's singing group. They're going to be doing songs about water. And then we're going to be having a seaweed and sea urchin centric dinner. And we're going to be learning about the estuary and really the relationship between rivers and the ocean, and how they impact one another. So that's that's coming up. So this is so these are coming up as well, and that will be up on my website also.
That sounds amazing. So sounds like there's lots of ways that people connect with you. They can buy your book, they can check out the website for offerings, they can go to your Instagram. Well, thank you so much, Maria Finn, for joining me today on Heal with Mushrooms podcast. It has been an honor and a joy to get to know you and what you offer this world and how you are bringing connection through wild foods. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the magical world of mushrooms. Just like mycelium, we're all interconnected, and together we can heal ourselves, our community, and the planet. If today's episode sparks something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Tag me on Instagram at Heal with Mushrooms. Share your own mushroom stories or send me a message. I'd love to connect. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who could use a little mushroom magic in their life. It truly helps this community grow. Until next time, keep foraging for wisdom, cooking up curiosity, and crafting your own elixirs of transformation. And remember, healing is happening one spore at a time. See you in the next episode. Bye.